Hello everyone and welcome to the next in the series of the Why Manage. Sorry it's been a bit of a delay, but there's been a few issues with my health, but anyway, we'll crack on and take a look at the next team in the Premiership about why it might be a good idea to manage them in Football Manager 22. Okay, so we'll be looking today at Brentford. They are the 50th different team to be playing in the Premier League after they were promoted from the Championship last season, the first time they are back in the top flight in 74 years. Nicknamed the Bees, their ground, whilst not actually called the Beehive, is nicknamed the Beehive because of this. They were formed in 1889, professional turning in 1899, and have recently moved to the Brentford Community Stadium last year in 2020 from Griffin Park, which they'd been at over 100 years. So, and it is an incredible looking ground. I mean, there's a picture of it there, but I mean, when you see it on Sky, and I'm sure anyone who's actually been to it can actually sort of like confirm how impressive that stadium really is. And it's a silly little fact, but the most frequent opponents that Brentford have ever played are Bournemouth at home. Okay, so newcomers to the Premiership. As I said previously, they haven't been in the top flight for 74 years, since 1947, so it really has been a long time coming for them. There are obviously other teams that haven't been in the top flight for a good old while as well, but it is always refreshing to see someone new come into the Premier League and not the same old teams. Unless it's your team, of course, I understand that, but it's refreshing and it's nice, especially when you've got a team who sort of like to play football and like to attack. They are the 50th different team to play in the Premier League, so that in itself is sort of like a little stat that'll be always looked back upon. And the head coach is Thomas Frank. He took over after Dean Smith left for Aston Villa, implementing slight changes in the style because they were always attacking anyway, but he's made a few tweaks and a very bright figure in the Premier League. He's widely sort of like considered to be a very good manager. Actually recently sort of like having a bit of a positivity come his way from Jurgen Klopp. So Brentford then, before they were promoted, they've had this strategy for a long time, and their strategy is to sort of like basically try and sign gems or these unheard of kind of players, or players with potential sort of like for low amount, and play their strong, attractive football, but at the same time sort of like, as soon as they get offers for these players, they are actually quite happy to sell as long as they get a good fee for them, and that has served them well in the last few seasons, even more so than before. If you can see sort of like the amounts that they've been making off these players, like Neil Maupay, for example, who was bought for about 1.8 million. The transfer fees I'm sort of like using are from transfermarkt.co.uk. I'm not 100% sure on the exact amount, but these are the ones reported on there. So about £1.8 million, and he was sold for 16 million or thereabouts, or maybe even more with clauses. It's not quite clear, but that's an incredible bit of business there. £14 million profit approximately, maybe more with clauses. Saeed Benrahma, who was sold to West Ham last season, was bought for 1.5 and sold for over 20 million all told. And even more, money in the bank with Ollie Watkins going to Aston Villa last season for 30 million plus after costing 6.5. So, massive amounts of profit being made there. There are other clubs who we will discuss in this series who have a similar kind of model, though Brentford do execute this actually probably better than a lot of clubs. As you can see, with just a few of those deals there, that's an extraordinary amount of money being brought into the club just off a few players. And they potentially could do this again. Obviously, there's more than just the two, but there's the two I've highlighted there, Ivan Toney and Mbeumo, who again have not cost them that much money. and easily would be worth sort of like similar values, 20 to 30 million. At least they would definitely be selling in that kind of ballpark. Okay, so if we take a look then at the squad, as I said, they've got a strategy, but this season they've continued with it, but also sort of like to make sure that they do try and stay up and have a good go at staying up. Christopher Ayer, I'm not sure how to actually pronounce that, I'm sorry, has been bought in. He's sort of like, he's a good solid defender. He's been at Celtic for a couple of years or so. Frank Onyeka, who they brought in from Denmark, I'm not sure which club exactly actually, I think Midtjylland, and Johan Wieser, and all three of these are actually 25 or under, but all three of them sort of like, okay, a bit more money they've spent in this Premier League season. However, if they make the sort of trajectory that they've been making at previous clubs and like Brentford do, then they will be definitely worth more than what Brentford have paid for them. And all three of them actually have got sort of like good solid experience in their careers as well. Ayer, Onyeka have definitely featured in Europe, whether successfully or not for their clubs, but they definitely have featured in Europe, and add that little bit of experience to this inexperienced Brentford squad in the Premier League, and they've gelled very quickly and fitted into the style of football that they play, and there's a good reason why Brentford are 7th. So Brentford have solid foundations, as good clubs will do. I mean, you go up to the Premier League, and it's important to remember that as much as scoring goals is important, keeping them out or limiting the shots against you is vitally important. And the recruitment and the players in those areas are actually doing the business and getting this, giving them a stable back in which they can then play this progressive football. They've got David Raya in goal, and actually 24 isn't actually a very old keeper, though he has been there for a little while, but he's a very strong goalkeeper with good reflexes, and actually, strangely enough, has the most passes in the Brentford team at the moment. Pontus Janssen, who they signed from Leeds, obviously there's a little bit of a thing there with Leeds when he left, however he's sort of like a key experienced, actually the oldest player in the squad I think, and he brings in a good amount of experience and leads the line extremely well. As already mentioned, Ayer coming in from Celtic, settled in extremely well. I didn't realise that Ayer is 6'5", so very handy with set pieces. In defence, actually, obviously that's where he plays, but he'll be very good going forward, they would hope. But 6'5", that's a very key position, a very key attribute to have in the defence. And whilst FM have him mainly, or have him linked in this 121 as a right winger, he has been playing as a right back this season and is actually impressively doing really well there, within the top 10 in the division for tackles, and obviously scoring the first game against Arsenal. He has an abundance of energy and is providing key width to the Brighton attack, as well as being solid in defence. Okay, and well, as mentioned, they've got this strong back, but that's so they can go forward and attack with numbers and pace, and they also do attack with sort of like with flair as well. Like, they're not just sort of like a quick pace side. They can pass well, they can pass through the lines, and the forward players can run with the ball as well and cause a lot of damage with a lot of interplay between themselves. Ivan Toney obviously is the main man, last season scoring over 30 goals in the division, has formed a very solid partnership with Brian and Buemo, who scored 8 and 10, which doesn't seem sort of like quite as impressive considering Tony's haul, but that is a strong campaign as well, sort of like less sort of like the actual score himself, but more creator, and the runs that he makes brings others into play, and they forged a good start in this current season. And even possibly more impressive actually in this campaign anyway is Johan Wieser, who has settled into the Premier League and into the Brentford squad well, scoring 5 goals in 6 games in all competitions. So that's a very impressive start for Brentford, and and their midfield backs that up as well. I mean, they're very hard working. They also do their fair share of work off the ball in the defensive play as well. So, very strong, very bold team altogether. And unlike a lot of other Premiership teams when they get promoted, or other newcomers when they get promoted, they're really giving it a go, because let's face it, you're not really going to stay up if you don't. So why manage Brentford? There's several reasons. Obviously, I mean, you can make lots of cases for lots of teams, but a good reason I think would be the fact that they have such a strategy, and an effective one at that. So would you be able to continue with that strategy? Would you be able to work and look for the gems and sign them for cheap and sell them forward? I mean, you don't have to sell them forward, obviously, it's your file, it's your save, but they do, and they when a bid comes in, they're happy to sell and take that money and reinvest. So would you would you be able to do that? Would you want to take up the challenge of doing that, or possibly work with a director of football and let the director of football sign and try and sign these gems, and you work with them and get them sort of like into the team and playing the strong attacking football that Brentford manage? Can you replicate the impressive form that they're doing this season? Because they have started very brightly. As mentioned, they're in the top half of the table, and they're playing good football as well. They're being firm at the back, which is unusual for a promoted side, but they're very comfortable and they look like they belong at this level. So can you do the same? Can you do that with a 3 or 5 at the back, whichever you prefer to call it? Because that's what they've been playing with, and it's not the easiest formation to get working in Football Manager. So, can you get that to work? I mean, they have introduced a new position in 22 with a wide centre back, so fingers crossed that will make it a bit easier. But can you get that to work for Brentford? Although I've said that, bearing in mind it is a game, so can you keep them up? Because just because they're playing this way, just because they're actually attacking and they're looking good in real life, doesn't mean that this will translate 100% into the game. So thinking about it realistically, can you just keep them up? Can you instead of worrying about the style of play, can you just be pragmatic and make sure that they don't concede on the game? Because it depends on the mechanics. So if nothing else, if you don't want to necessarily work on the gem signing, if you don't really want to use 5 at the back, can you forge a pragmatic approach that keeps Brentford in the league and develop them even further than they are now? So that's a good look there at why I think you should manage Brentford on Football Manager. As always, we're going to have a look to see on FM21 with the update, what could I achieve? And to be honest, I've got to be honest, actually I failed, and they were relegated. So I retried, sort of like just to see if I could work out or find a tactic that you could use with the update on this Football Manager if you wanted to give it a go before the new one, and give it a go, see what you can achieve. And this is what I came up with. Basically, I've used, I think, the Bossa Nova, or it might be just sort of like standard Gegenpress instructions, to be honest, on a 5 at the back, where it's meant to be a 5 at the back and 3 in midfield and 2 up front, similarly to how they're playing. So it's either Bossa Nova or just Gegenpress in general, and I've used 5 at the back like they have done in real life. and we've got 10th place, although like I said I've got to admit it, I failed and I got them relegated, so obviously not a great tactician. I don't claim to be, I test tactics mainly, but this tactic has kept them up and I'm happy with that. So I mean I could re-go and give it a go again. So we'll have a look at the stats then, what we got with the simulation, and we can see that Mbeumo and Tony absolutely smashed the league. 26 and 24 goals, that's 50 goals between them in all competitions, which is a heck of it. They'd love that in real life. And Tony there, look at that, a couple less than Mbeumo, but 9 assists, so some good play there. And some chips in there with Aja. Like I said, he is 6'5". We would hope for those kind of numbers when playing the game. Onyeka there has actually done pretty well as well, new signing. Some good stats there at all. Unfortunately not many greens, but that happens. We are a newly promoted side. They're probably sort of like the games where we've done badly does affect them at all, but that's not 14 clean sheets with Raya there, so not too bad of a start. And we'll have a look overall then. So 10th in the Premier League, as I said, I think they'd happily take that. That's a good start for them. 22 goals from Mbeumo, highest average rating is Tony, 11 assists with Canos there. Carabao Cup, we came runners up. Wow, look at that, runners up, losing 1-0 to Liverpool. That's a shame. Nearly got a cup in the first season as well, but there we go. That'd be impressive. I think they'd happily take that all day long this season. 10th and a runners-up berth in one of the cup. 4th round, Manchester City in the FA Cup. Only 1-0 again, so close there. So all in all, that tactic, we again, like I said, it's not the most inventive, I know. I did try, I did foul, but a second attempt even, we did sort of like, we achieved something with them, and that could be fun. So there we go. That's why I think it would be a good idea to manage Brentford in FM22. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But if you do, or if you're planning to, let me know. If you're using the FM21, let me know how it's going. I'd love to hear it. Any further reasons, please comment in the comments. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please like it. I think that does something, I don't really know. And if you don't, fair enough. But thank you for watching. I've been Kippa9, and peace out.